I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, Cowboys, I love it. Oh, they had a big one, man. That was surprising. I did not see that happening. And so they came out, their defense stepped it up. That was good. Good game for them.
Me personally, man, as a lifelong fan, I, I don't know what you're playing for. You're not going to make the playoffs, even if you went out, because bare minimum NFC this year, you're going to have at least 10 wins just to have a wild card because the NFC is as stacked as it's been in the
Yep.
last 10 years. I mean, you don't want to just lay an egg every game, but like, what are you really playing for? You're not going to, I don't
It's
know,
hard.
man. It sucks.
It's tough, man. I mean, I had a couple of those years because my first job in the NFL was the year after the Lions went 0-16. So I came in there and we went 2-14. So we had a 200% win increase. But you're looking at October and you know you're out of the race. You got it. That tells you character. I mean, honestly, I don't mind that because you get to see the guys that are in it for the right reasons. It helps you make better roster decisions for the following year. But it's not fun to go through, man. You got to do some gut checking.
Oh, no, for sure, for sure. So, what are you up to these days, man?
Got a lot going on. So my first book, I got a book coming out December 10th. It's a personal development book, basically. The main title is Beyond Comfort. So I've kind of, I've worked in the NFL 16 years. It's been awesome. I've had an incredible time, been blessed to do amazing things, but it's also taken me away from family. It's taken me away from my kids. I have three kids. I've missed birthdays. I've missed, life events that I'm not proud of, but I can't dictate my schedule. I got to go where the games are and I have to be certain places at certain times. So it's pulled me away a lot. So I'm using this year, number one, to reconnect with them, but I'm coaching my kids in a bunch of sports. It gave me an opportunity to write this book. I've launched a YouTube channel. I'm trying to get more active on social media just to have a positive impact on people, use some of the stories and some of the lessons that I've learned selfishly, but then give them back to other people so that they can learn from that. So I'm doing consulting, I'm doing keynote speaking, and I actually get a lot of passion out of that, man. It's fun to be able to, not just in sports organizations, I can talk to them and help them, but I can go into these businesses, different industries, and have an impact on them because then I can help them establish better daily routines that can help them become more productive. Whether you're in sales, whether you're in technology, a startup, whatever it is, there's so many parallels and there's so many crossovers. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
So, are you done for good with the NFL, or are you just taking a break?
As of right now, taking a break. I'll reevaluate everything, obviously, in the hiring cycle when things come up, because it is something I'm passionate about competition.
Yeah.
I've been to two Super Bowls and I've lost them both, and that's not that still pisses me off personally. So I still want to win one. My whole thing when I got into it was I want to win three Super Bowl rings to give one to each of my children. So that's
Mm.
something I'm still passionate about, man. I haven't checked that box off, so it's not like me to quit before goals achieved. So there's still an itch there for sure.
So, where did you first get your start at in the NFL?
2009 Detroit Lions. So at that point, I played college football at the University of Toledo, which was awesome. I had a great experience and got to coach there for 2 years right after I graduated. Basically, I did a little bit of high school coaching there in the short term, and then when a graduate assistant job opened up, they brought me in, and then I got promoted after 1 year to a full-time position at my alma mater. And then this job opened up with the Detroit Lions. It was a part-time job, so I got in 2009. They had gone 0-16 the year prior, so they fired Rod Marinelli and his staff. Jim Schwartz comes in. I get this opportunity, and they say, "Hey, it's a part-time job." So for me, I'm like, I really don't care at that point. But I was at the University of Toledo making a full-time salary. At that point, it was nothing. It was peanuts. But you feel like you're a millionaire when you finally get that full-time job. I have health benefits and all that. Well, that all ended. So I took this part-time job. I didn't have medical, I didn't have health care, and I had this 1,000 hour restriction. So after I maxed out my 1,000 hours, I didn't get a paycheck. I maxed out those hours through the off season. So literally from July through February, I did not receive a paycheck. So I started odd jobs. I started high school strength and conditioning programs from scratch. So which helped me definitely as a
Yeah.
professional. It helped me programming and things like that and learning how to coach better, but just to make ends meet. And there was a time where I was waking up in Toledo, Ohio, driving over an hour to Allen Park, Michigan, where the Lions facility is, then driving 45 minutes to Ann Arbor, where I was doing some of this high school coaching, then driving well over an hour back home. So that was this cycle. The grind, I always tell people this, whether you're making $1 million or literally $0, it shouldn't change your process because if it does, you're very oriented on the outcome. You're outcome based. You need to be process based. When you're process based, the outcome will take care of itself. And I wasn't smart enough to know that at the time. I just did it. I put my head down and worked. And at the end of the year, I got promoted. And it's helped me every step along the way through my career. I've always had good outcomes because I try to lock in and focus on that process.
Definitely, definitely. So when you think about everything that you've been through in the NFL, what's one of the hardest things that you've had to overcome during your career there?
Long story short, adversity in so many different forms. I love sports because they're a microcosm of life. When you lose one game in the NFL, it literally feels like your entire world is crumbling. Specifically, there's certain cities like Philadelphia where the media is super hard. You lose one game and it's like, oh, this is the worst team ever. Shutting off that outside noise, I think, is something we can all learn from. So I love the fact that I've had years, decades of practice because your life is lived through the media. You get
Yeah.
hired, you get fired, the media knows. ESPN ticker, things like that. So I think step number one, wins and losses, once again, going back to that outcome based approach versus a process based approach, you have to be able to do that if you want to have long term success and create a positive legacy. You have to focus on the process. And I think the wins, those micro wins, those micro losses, that teaches you that. But that, I mean, honestly, one of the biggest adversities I ever had, I had a stroke when I was in LA with the Rams. I was in my early 30s. I was
That's
Sean,
young.
young, no health, I literally no risk factors. I was the youngest in my position at the time. I was a director of strength training and performance. So the youngest in the league. Sean McVay's the youngest head coach in the league at the time. We got really close. We're in the midst of a lot of success. We won fast and people didn't expect us to. So life is going great. I'm, living the dream, living in LA. Our youngest child was one at the time, had just turned one. So just crushing life. And then something like that happens. That's significant adversity. That's stress. I look at myself, and when you have that moment, thank God they got this clot buster. It's called TPA in me within the time frame. It's like a 2 hour time frame. Otherwise, long-term damage is very likely. Thank God I got to the hospital in time. But when you have that moment, I vividly remember sitting in the ICU when my wife was finally able to come back in, and I still couldn't speak. I couldn't talk at that time. And I saw the look on her face when I tried to talk, and that's not a fun look to see. So I think when you go through adversity like that, or you can create positive outcomes from tough, adverse situations. And it's something that I've used with players, with coaches, with some of these businesses, the consulting, the keynote speaking. It's something that I've seen help other people because when you have that stress, when you have that bit of adversity, you have two choices, and it's always your choice. Your effort and your attitude comes down to whatever choice you make. You can lean into that stress or you can run away from it and go into unhealthy habits and try to hide from it. I chose to lean into it, and we went to the Super Bowl that year. We continued. We had the most wins in the entire NFL over a 2 year period because we chose to kind of lean into that, and that became part of what built our team because we all carried that mentality. So a lot of micro wins, a lot of micro losses. That's one of the most significant adversities that I've went through because health, it doesn't discriminate based on age, based on gender, based on everything. You can
Right.
go through tough times, and it's helped me become a more empathetic leader in some of the roles that I've had too.
So when you decided to take a break from the NFL, did what you just got done talking about, the moment where you saw your wife's face when you couldn't speak in a stroke, did that play in the back of your mind when you were contemplating continuing in NFL?
100%, because I think it comes down to this. When I love the word zoomability. I don't think it exists, but I always talk about it. You got to be able to zoom in and zoom out. And I think this is
Right.
important for anyone in leadership, specifically whether you're a parent, whatever. It doesn't matter what your role is in life, you need to have this ability. So when I zoomed out and you kind of detach from those emotions and I said, look 10 years into the future, what am I going to regret? And one of the first things that popped into my mind, Corey, was my kids. I started thinking about the birthdays that I missed. I started thinking about everything else. And then I zoomed right back in and said, what can I control right now? All right, well, I can coach their sports because they're at an age where I still have them in the house before they go to college. I can be more present. I can drop them off at school. I can pick them up. I think people take for granted sometimes when you work in the NFL, we say like the civilian life, we almost make it like a military thing because we work extremely long hours, 7 days a week, the majority of the year. I mean, there's times where you're literally working for months without a single day off, and it's hard on the family. I think that's the other thing. So people take for granted dropping off their kids at school, picking them up, just driving in the car with them, those little organic moments. I've never had those for their entire life until this year, and it's been amazing because I'm forming long-term memories that they're going to have that I'm going to have, Corey. So it's been awesome.
How old are your children?
10, 8, and 7.
That's prime. That's prime years right there.
100%. Formidable.
So how old are you right now?
I'm 41. I literally just turned 41 on Friday.
Happy late birthday. But I mean, man, though, you're still real young. So even after all your kids turn 18, you could literally get back in the league at what, 50
Mhm.
or younger.
Yep.
It's a no-brainer. It's a win-win.
No doubt. And that's the thing. I selfishly
That's great though. I mean, it's good.
appreciate it. It's time. It's time. Do you have kids, Corey?
Yep. I got an 18-year-old and a 6-year-old. My youngest turns 7 this Saturday, which is on the game day of Louisville, Kentucky in football. Now, if it wasn't on her actual birthday, I could probably maneuver stuff. But with it being on her actual 7th birthday, I'm not even trying to maneuver nothing. I already know what the answer is.
Yep. And good for you though. That's priorities. And that's I live faith, family, football. And if I'm living true to those priorities, then I need to make tough decisions occasionally. And I shouldn't always put football first because
Yeah.
like you, I've missed our oldest daughter's birthday falls in January, and I've missed 3 out of the last 4 because 2 of them were playoff games where I was physically out of town. And then another one, we were hiring our head coach. So I was on our head coaching committee. I was at our owner's house in Florida, Jeffrey Lurie, and I was interviewing head coaches. So literally physically, I haven't been there in 3 out of 4 years in those formidable years. Man, that's tough. It's hard and it's not fair to the kids. It's not like they chose. So faith, family, football, if I'm living by that, I better make sure that my actions match what I'm saying.
That's got to weigh on you as a man, as a father. It's got to be like, oh, I can only imagine what the child feels.
100%.
And you
100%.
gotta feel a little guilt. Not that you're doing anything wrong, because you're still providing a good life for your family. But at the end of the day, it's extremely hard to provide a life for your family and balance of being there too. That's probably one
Absolutely.
of the biggest things that people that I've chatted with made a have honed in on, is what that's probably one of the main things that people don't understand, of like really how hard it is on the family once you get to a certain level in a career.
And it's selfish, but you're providing a life and you're providing certain things that I didn't have growing up. But at the same time, it's time. It's exactly that. And time is the one commodity we can't buy more of. It doesn't matter how much money, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, it doesn't matter who you are. You can't create more time. So once again, looking forward, you got to ask yourself difficult questions and you got to be honest with yourself when you look at yourself critically in the mirror. What are you going to regret in 10 years? Well, you better fix whatever you're going to regret so that you don't regret that. So I think zooming in, zooming out, and asking yourself those tough questions is important.
Oh, definitely. What was your childhood like growing up, Ted?
Man, very blessed. Both parents still alive, but I grew up in a small town in Michigan, and it was southeastern Michigan, kind of right on the border of Ohio. Farming community. I graduated with around 80 people in my graduating class, so tiny
That's
high
what
school.
I had.
It's tiny, but
Yeah.
everyone knows everybody. I met my wife in high school. We were high school sweethearts. So amazing. But we grew up. My grandpa's house was right across the field. He owned a farm. My parents live on that farm now. So baling hay in the summer, those odds and ends jobs on the farm, I think that taught me the value of hard work and the sweat. Basically you can put in sweat equity and you can create things. And if you're
Yeah.
willing to wake up early, go to work and work your butt off, typically good things happen. And I learned that at a very young age. So I feel fortunate that I got that upbringing in a small community where everyone knew each other. It was kind of a cool upbringing.
You've mentioned the word time a lot, and that's something that I personally value a lot. You know, one of the biggest icks for me personally is when an individual, whether it be man, woman, or whatever you choose to identify as, tells me they don't have the time. I shut down. I'll let them speak, but I'll never react with them, because that's a lie. You have the time. It's a choice. You choose to make time. You choose not to make time. As a man yourself, what's your thoughts on that?
I would agree with you because I would say this, you don't have right when someone tells me if they don't have time, I'm going to say you don't have the courage to make a tough decision because
True.
that's an excuse. It's 100% an excuse. And
Hmm.
we all have to live with this accountability, but the most important accountability we can apply is self-accountability. At the end of every day, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you have to be honest with yourself. If you can fool yourself, it's going to be hard for you to probably get a grip on this life and create positive success because if you're going to continually make excuses, it's just going to be hard for you, man. So everyone has the same amount of time. You have the same 24 hours today, but what you choose to do with it may be very different from what I choose versus someone else. but it's all a choice. It's literally a choice. What time did you wake up this morning? It was my choice whether I got up early and got a workout in or hit snooze. That's the first choice. To me, that's the first win of the day, or that's the first loss. I'm sure as hell not starting the day with a loss. So I'm going to beat my alarm clock every single day. That's my first win. Then I'm going to stack win after win on that. But those are choices. They only come with choices.
Some people call me a psycho. I wake up without an alarm clock. I don't know how I do it. I just wake up. I don't know. My wife says I'm a psycho. You know, I try to balance my time and maximize it to the fullest, just like I'm sure you do yourself. Like today, I normally go to the gym 7 and 7:30 on Mondays before football. I switch it to after football. Wake up, your interview, go football, go gym, pick my kid up. Do all the ducks in a row. I can't fathom a person that sits there, Ted, and says they don't have the time. If
I agree. I
if
agree.
I could work 45, 50 hours a week at my day job, cut hair on the side, do my sports stuff, try to build this, I'm not buying it. I'm not trying to sound like I'm better than the next man or woman or whoever's out there. I can't get over somebody that says they don't have time.
No, you're just making positive choices. You're taking control of the controllables, and that's the easiest
Mm-hmm.
thing to look past in life because it's uncomfortable. It's not
Yep.
comfortable to get up early. It's not comfortable to put your priorities in place and actually commit to them and then follow through and do them. But I always love Sean McVay always said this. People see better than they hear. So don't tell me what your priorities are.
Oh, I like that.
Show me. I can sit back and watch, but if your actions don't match what you're saying, no one's going to believe you. You're not going to have an impact on this world, on whatever industry, whatever business you do. You have to match those actions. So people see better than they hear, man. You have to be able to correspond with your actions.
Uh, Definitely, definitely. During your NFL career that you just recently took a break from, did you ever have any self-doubt?
Yeah, daily. I mean, I honestly think imposter syndrome is something I've never met a single person that has been honest with me and told me they've never dealt with imposter syndrome. And I've dealt with
Now,
first doubt
what
all
is that?
things.
No, what exactly is that?
So when it's that
I've
negative
heard it a
self-talk.
couple of times.
It's negative self-talk. It's exactly what you're talking about, Corey. It's self-doubt. It's those
Oh,
moments in your life where you're thinking, I don't deserve this. I'm not going to
yep.
be able to accomplish this. Why am I even trying this? Why am I starting a podcast? Why am I doing this? Why am I beginning this career? Why am I taking a break and trying to go into speaking? Your negative self-talk will continually get into your head. And once again, John Gordon, who's a great author and a friend of mine, he talks about this. Negativity is something that's always going to talk to you, but what you need to do is not listen to yourself. You need to talk to yourself. So to combat that negative self-talk, you need to repeat affirmations. I have an I am statement. A guy named Ben Newman, he's a motivational speaker and a coach. He helped me develop, but it's something I read to myself every day. And it basically goes through, it's reading and reaffirming things that I believe about myself. I'm a great father. I'm a great husband. All those things that I know are true, but sometimes that
Yeah.
self-doubt creeps in and tells you the opposite. You just combat it with that positive talk. And I'm not saying, you can't speak things completely into existence because the work has to be there and you have to put effort forth. But the more positive self-talk, I know this will lead to more positive outcomes because the people I know that are very negative, I try to keep them away from me. I just don't like a lot of negativity in my life when it's once again a choice. I think the
Yep.
people that are always, oh, why me? Here's the best way I could sum it up. I've had people explain it to me like this to where you're in a conversation and that person says, oh, with my luck, it's going to rain on my wedding day or whatever. Or you combat that, you meet that person that says, oh, there's rain in the forecast. Well, with our luck, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be bright. Give me that person all day, every day, because who doesn't want positivity in their life? Who would choose negativity? No one. So to combat that, build more positive habits into your life, build more positive affirmations in your life. And I think that can help combat some of those things.
Yeah, forget sunshine. Rain beers are the best, anyways. That's the way I look at it.
I love that. No
You
doubt.
know, I feel I agree to that too. With self doubt and stuff like I often question why I do what I do.
Mhm.
I've had moments of like, man, am I doing this? Like, am I doing it right? Like why? But like, what helps me is like having conversations with individuals like you. That's affirmation and reassurance for me because that lets me know I'm doing something right. Because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I
Yep.
wouldn't
No doubt.
talk to John Rondi, Zach Clayton, all the people that I've had conversations with. Those are mental building blocks of positivity for myself. How important to you is men's mental health?
Oh, it probably the most important thing. I mean, when you actually look at it, everyone is dealing, and this is what I love.
It sucks for us, though. Honestly, it's
It's
sad.
hard.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't be, but I think we're destigmatized enough. We can have conversations like this about and actually talk.
Yeah,
10 years ago, you wouldn't do that. Like, who was talking about these things when I was growing up? Probably you're the same, Corey. You didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't talk about depression, self-doubt. You didn't talk about any of these things. But now we're in a space where you can have a conversation. You can show vulnerability. And then
yeah.
once you do, it's pretty funny because typically the other person on the other side of you is like, yeah, I deal with the same thing, man. Here's how I combat it. And I think that's that what you're talking about. Iron sharpens iron. We can have these conversations, build each other up, and help everybody that we come into contact with.
Definitely, definitely. What was your time like with the Philadelphia Eagles? I'm assuming last season was your was your final year with them, correct?
Yep.
What was your time like with the Eagles?
It was great. Got to accomplish some great things. It started off once again more adversity. Like every year in the NFL, I could go through 1,000 stories. But when I took the job in Philly, it was right before COVID hit. So COVID hits, we go through a tough year. It's tough for everybody. I get that, but I'm still going to work every day. I'm moving a family from California to the East Coast. All those things intertwined, obviously add a lot of stress, a lot of adversity, but you overcome it. And then after that year, we let go Doug Peterson, so we fired the head coach. I was extremely fortunate. Literally got on the owner's private jet, flew down to his house, and for 2 weeks got to interview the brightest minds in football. So we're literally interviewing every head coaching candidate. And you talk about a master's degree in football, culture, leadership, being able to ask these guys certain questions and learn how their mind works, how they're going to build a staff, how they're going to form a culture for an NFL organization, and basically be the CEO of that team. That was an amazing process. So number one, that's probably the most impactful thing I think we were able to do. And we ended up hiring Nick Sirianni, went to the Super Bowl in 2 years with him. And it's been an incredible ride, man. I think as I look back and reflect on my career, every stop that I've had, every team, I've learned so much from so many people. I honestly feel like I've stolen so much knowledge, man. It's been incredible just to be able to reflect back and see how many things that I've learned.
Who has taught you the most during your NFL career before you took a break, as far as impact and tutelage?
If I had to list one, I don't know if I can list one. I mean,
Okay, okay, name a few. Name a few. All right. Sorry,
yeah,
one's too hard. You've been around a lot
dude,
of
there's so
great
many
people.
people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, Bill Ford Jr., who runs Ford Motor Company, is one of the owners of the Detroit Lions. I used to get to train him and work with him and ask him questions. This is a guy whose family literally changed the course of history. So you think about some of the questions, some of the life experiences he's had, and what his dad had gone through, like learning through people like that. I would say Stan Kroenke taught me a lot. So the owners that I've worked for, and then you talk about the general managers, the head coaches, Jim Caldwell. Jim Schwartz. I mean, Adam Gase was amazing. Sean McVay. Sean, from a 31-year-old head coach, I learned so much from him. His grandfather won 5 championships with the 49ers. His dad was a great leader, is a great leader in his own right. He's still around. His dad's awesome. So I think when you look at some of those people, I've learned literally something from everyone that I've encountered. But I also try to take that mindset. It doesn't matter. There's also people that are at, quote unquote lower on the totem pole that work in obscure different roles in the buildings that I've learned a ton from. The equipment managers that I've Timmy O'Neill, who's in Detroit, just people that I've learned humility, hard work, certain things like that. I've learned something from so many people in every organization, Corey. I think that's the cool thing. That's the best part of life, right? You get to meet people from all sorts of different backgrounds and you get to learn from their experiences.
So I want to backtrack just a little bit before we move forward. You've mentioned your kids and your wife a few times. Often, what doesn't get talked about is the sacrifices that coaches' children's and wives make. What's your thoughts on that? And touch on that, because I'm obvious your wife made a lot of sacrifices during your career.
Yeah, 100%. My wife's a rock star. I number one, she's my hero because you basically once the season hits, you're a single mother, and that sounds dramatic, But realistically, Corey, number one, not even taking the travel into consideration, even when you're just home, you're working on some occasions 16+ hour days. So even when I'm home, I'm still not home because by the time I get home, the kids are already in bed, and then I'm turning around and waking up at 3:30 in the morning and I'm back to work the next day. So I come home to sleep. And the wife is the one getting them ready for school, packing the lunches, going through all the after school activities, driving them from one practice to another activity to a play date to things like that. So that we joke, you're a football wife, you lose your husband for 6 to 7 months every single year at the NFL level because you're just not home. And then on top of that, the travel, the off season has become much harder from a schedule standpoint because the combine, you get more involved, free agency, draft process, all those things. So now you're gone, you're traveling, you're scouting, you're on the road. All those things start to compile. So it is extremely tough. She's a rock star with how she handles it and manages it. And she's devoted, her life to our kids and to our family. But if she didn't do what she did, it wouldn't allow me to go do what I do at work because I wouldn't be able to have that focus. So it's the most important thing in the world, man, having that rock at home.
Definitely. Now I want to push forward and talk about your final year with the Eagles, which was last year, how great the Eagles started. And then, I mean, that happens. Like novice people don't really quite understand how it works. Like, how hard was that for you and the people you care about that work for the Eagles to manage to get through that? Because last season was unfortunately tough.
Hmm. Yeah, same thing. Once again, adversity, you lose one game and it's brutal. When you start 10-1 and you lose several games in a row to close out the season, it's tough, man. It's really, really tough. And I think number one, you look at, I always self-reflect, what could I do better? So in those moments, it's way easier to be humble because you can look at yourself and actually say, all right, what do I need to do different? How can we improve this? How can we fix this? Everyone kind of goes into that mode. I've actually found, Corey, sometimes winning is harder. And this sounds incredibly crazy, but there's been multiple times where I've been on like undefeated teams, 8-0, things like that. So everything's going great. I've been on multiple teams like that. When you're in that mode, sometimes you cover up those small things that maybe aren't done right, but you're like, we're still winning because it's easier for people to make those excuses. In those moments, I honestly believe you have to double down on the process even more because if you start covering up some of those things that maybe are not done as sharply as they should be, that's when the losses will start. But it starts weeks in advance because you were like, well, we didn't do this to the same level. We just let it go because we still won. And then we didn't do this. Then those compound. So there's people in three situations in life. You're either in the middle of adversity, you just came out of it, or you're about to head into it. So those people that are about to head into it are usually the ones that sweep things under the rug, don't keep their process and their standards up to the same level, and then that's when the losses come. So for me, it's always looking back and reflecting. Just because we lost, that's outcome based. But what led to that? Something 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago probably started a trend that allowed
Hmm.
us to get to the point where we actually lost a game.
Definitely, definitely. Now, you've mentioned sweep under the rug a couple times. Talk us through that in your personal perspective, how damning that could actually be when people, companies, or whatever start to do that.
Once again, it goes back to your standards. So it goes back to that action thought process to where don't tell me, show me. Your standards are exactly that. Your long-term legacy will be built on your daily habits. So your standards have to be in alignment with elite performance, whether you're in business, running a company, sales, whatever, or in sports, you have to have elite level habits because that's
Yep.
what ultimately will drive your outcomes. So if you do not do that, I love this example. It was our first year in LA and I was 32, 33 years old. So I'm super young at the time. We have, multiple players older than me still, but I'm in this leadership position and it's me and Sean. And the first time the NFL we can issue fines to players. So we basically financial fines. And we only fine for a couple of things. For us, it's being outside of your weight range. So I can assign an actual weight range that we know is optimal for the players. So if you're overweight, we can fine you by pound. And if you're late or if you miss practice, a training session, a meeting, whatever, we can fine you. So the whole time when we took the job, me and Sean met with all of our leaders. We met with Aaron Donald, we met with Jared Goff, we met with all these guys, and we asked them all, "What do you need? How can we get this turned around?" They all said the same thing: accountability. Okay, we're going to hold you accountable, but we want you to hold us accountable too, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable. They all agreed to it. Said, "All right." When we finally got in season, I had the first player show up late. And we were at the University of California, Irvine, where we had this sliding glass doors to the weight room. So we did training camp offsite down there. And I see this player. He was a captain for us, Michael Brockers, phenomenal guy. I love Brock. He's walking in, and I'm looking at my watch. I'm looking at the clock because we had to have him synced if we're going to find players based on this. And it's ticking, and then it hits. He walks in literally, Corey, 10 seconds late. And in my head, I'm having this battle, and I'm literally battling myself internally, and I'm thinking, do I uphold the standard? Do I let this slide? He's one of our captains. This is going to be really uncomfortable for me. This is a tough situation, mini adversity. And within 5 seconds, I have all these thoughts, and then I just snap, and I'm like, no, the standard is the standard. This is what it is.
Yeah.
So I blow the whistle. I bring the entire team up. I said, guys, what did we talk about this offseason? Accountability. Brock was 10 seconds late. That's going to be a fine, Brock. And right in that moment, Brock's like, man, it's 10 seconds. Does it really matter? I go in. Does it matter, Brock? If we're in the middle of a fourth quarter, Russell Wilson scrambling, we're trying to win the division, we're trying to clinch a number one seed, and you go two-hand tag him, does the rep blow the whistle, or do you need to finish the play? Our standard is to finish everything that we do. Our standard is not going to change. Our
Yeah.
standard is our daily habits, and that includes being on time every single day. He's like, you got it. From that point on, players start saying it. The standard is the standard. We
Yeah.
not like everything we said, we lived. And I think that's why we were able to accomplish great things in LA. And that's a credit to the players because they owned it. They took in, once again, the action. They lived it. They didn't just say it, they lived it.
What's your thoughts on the way the game's played today? Because it's definitely changed, and it changes progressively year in, year out.
The NFL, in my opinion, does an incredible job because number one, what are they trying to do? They're trying to optimize value for the fan. They're trying to keep the game hyper competitive. They've done all those things. Now,
Yeah.
there's a safety aspect. This is a 100% injury sport. Every player is dealing with something. And that sounds a little out there to say, but every player is dealing with something either on a low or a high threshold because it's a painful sport. When you have these guys that are big, strong, and fast running into each other, colliding constantly, you're going to have things break. So, number one, I think it's incredible that we don't have more significant injuries because do we have a lot? The ACLs, all the other, yeah, we have a lot, but they've adapted the game in such a way to make it as safe as possible, and they're going to continue to do so. So, once again, it's that process. They have a process of continuously trying to change the game for the better, and I have a lot of admiration for that because I think it's better for the fans. The points are still going to get scored. I think they skew it towards the offensive side of the ball a lot of times with some of the rule changes. But overall, what's exciting for the fans, those long touchdowns, 70-yard runs, 80-yard, touchdown passes, things like that. It's a fun game, and I think they've done a good job of adapting. Are there certain things? I'm a meathead at heart. I love physical football, some of the
Yep.
hits. But I also say this, man, officials, they're humans, and the job that they have to do is incredibly difficult. That game is going incredibly fast. If you ever stand on the sideline, you're going to watch guys running 100 miles an hour. And to see something go bang, bang and actually make a decisive call as an official, that's a tough job. So I do not despise those guys. I don't necessarily want that job because that's a really tough job to do.
No, it definitely is. I got a few more questions for you in this conversation. What does your book exactly cover? You
Yeah,
talked about it a little bit, but like if you could pinpoint a few things, what all does it exactly cover?
Yeah, it's titled Beyond Comfort. It's coming out in December 10th. So it's basically to sum it up, once again, those things that we've talked about, your standards, your daily habits, I call them daily deposits. So a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about in the book is based on simple life adjustments. So how can you develop a better daily routine like we talked about earlier, Corey? How can you set it up so that you can wake up earlier? Well, one simple fix, you call it a life hack, whatever. If your phone is sitting right next to your bed and that's your alarm clock and you're having a problem hitting snooze in the morning, move your phone 10 feet away from you. Set it across the room. Set your environment up so that those daily deposits can take place. Once you're up and on your feet, you can hit your phone. Now you're up. You're not going back into bed. So get into a situation where you can actually change your environment that will help you with your daily processes. So we go into that. I use a lot of stories, obviously, from football, but I also bring in stories from outside industries, some of the companies, some of the things that I've been able to do. We're minority owners in a basketball team in Italy. It's a pro basketball team. And my wife and I got to travel there this June and we won the championship. We basically got promoted to Serie A is what it's called, and it's the top league. So watching that process, but being involved kind of in behind the scenes role in seeing how you build a team, an organization, a franchise, or a business from the ground up. And you take this from an American group coming into Italy and buying this group. We went through several steps. It wasn't easy. So I think finding ways to learn from all of those experiences, that's what I kind of bring into the book. So I have a lot of stuff from football, a lot of NFL stories, but I also have some things like that from outside sources where it's helped me shape better patterns, better habits, better daily deposits that tend to lead to outcomes that are really, really good in the end.
Definitely, definitely. What's one thing in your life that you had to overcome aside from that? Like maybe like a death of a loved one. That's one thing people don't ever talk about is like the grieving aspect of it. Do you ever find yourself looking back at the passing of a loved one and it's still affecting you today?
Yeah, I think that's common. I've been very
Yeah,
fortunate. Once again, my parents are still here, but I vividly remember my grandfather who has my same name. So they named me after him. His name was Ted
that's
Rath.
cool.
And he passed away. And once again, you talk about time. I wasn't able to go to his funeral. I was actually out of town. I was at an event that Gatorade invited me to, and my family, we only had one child at the time. My wife and our oldest were there. So we couldn't even go to his funeral. And I look back, number one, there's probably some guilt there. I'm like, man, that's my grandfather. I'm named after him. I'm
Yeah,
carrying on his legacy through his name, things like that. I feel really bad. But then I also think about the positive impact on me. He's one of the people that I look to from hard work, from waking up early every single day, grinding, the life of a farmer. And he was also a truck driver, just working his butt off at all times. And I remember that. So I look back on that and then I try to see, all right, am I exposing my kids to the same thing? Are they going to see me working hard? Are they going to see me being a good, humble person, doing the right thing, not just because someone sees it, but even behind the scenes, having a high character? And no matter what people do or whatever, I'm still going to try to do the right thing because I'm going to operate as a Christian and as a loving person and try to do the right thing for everyone. So for me, I take that and I think the life is more important to me than the death. So I try to take the positive impacts that it's had on me and I can look to him specifically and carry a lot of those.
definitely. What's something folks don't know about you?
Ooh, I love wine, big wine drinker, and
Really?
I never would have thought I would, but living in California got exposed to wine. And it's funny, Corey, because we keep talking the process. I'll say it again. I've said it a lot. But when we actually went to Napa Valley for the first time, and when you go into some of these really cool estates and they have this process, and you start asking questions, because I'm a question guy, I'm very curious. I just want to learn. So I'm asking, well, what's the process like? All right, when do you grow the grapes? When do you plant them? And growing up in a farming community, there's that tie in too. I know how much hard work there is. So then you hear these stories, Corey, about these guys saying, well, we plant the grapes here, but here's the difference. We have to plant in this specific section because we have wildlife here, but the deer will eat the grapes, and these grapes are money. We lose our crop, and then we have to plant a certain time. And then the winter comes, even in California, especially in Napa, when it gets cold. If we have a frost, we have to bring out extension cords and hair dryers, blow dryers to warm up the grapes because if they freeze one time, we can literally lose an entire crop, and that's 1 year's vintage. That's millions of dollars of product. So you start looking at all these things. You got guys waking up at 3 in the morning to go out and check on these grapes. The process that goes behind creating a great bottle of wine, I have a lot of appreciation for. It's the same thing with bourbon, with tequila. Like all these things have a process.
Yeah,
For me, though, I just fell in love kind of with the process behind wine, probably because of that farming background or a little bit of knowledge about that and understanding how much work it takes to create this thing that at the end somebody's going to share a glass with a family member at Thanksgiving and build a memory off of this. I think that's really cool.
how does Ted Rath want to be remembered as a person?
Great question. Number one, obviously, I want a positive legacy. I want people to be able to say he's one of the kindest individuals I've ever been around. Selfishly, I want people to be able to say Ted was always there. He always tried. He would always try to do the right thing, and he would always be available for someone who needed help. Whether it's donating time, donating financially, just trying to do the right thing, just trying to live, once again, faith, family, football. That first one is faith. So I need to leave a positive legacy as a Christian because if I'm not living in alignment with those values, then I need to reevaluate what my actions are. And once again, are people going to make mistakes? Absolutely. but having that urgency to get over the mistake and then just try to do the next best thing. I think taking that positive step forward, that's what I want people to remember. Positivity, but also kindness. I just want people to understand I'm an intense person. I get intense because I'm passionate about helping people and I'm passionate about life. But I want people to remember I'm doing it because I want everyone else to have a better life. And that's what really drives me every day.
Where can people find your book when it gets released?
So it'll be on Amazon. It'll be on all the major publishers. If they follow me, so at Ted Rath Strength Coach, most of my social handles. I have a website, tedrath.com. I'm going to have updates coming out on all that stuff. Once again, it releases December 10th. So if you follow me on socials, hit me on at Ted Rath Strength Coach. I have a YouTube channel that I drop a lot of information into, and we're going to continue to put content up. Follow me on those, and I'll have up-to-date stuff, but you'll be able to get it on Amazon, anywhere else you would get books.
All right. I got one more question, but before I ask it, you have any questions for me? Because I always do that at the end, like where I allow the people I interview to ask me questions.
Absolutely. And that this is what I love to ask anyone who started a podcast, why did you start this and what's your long-term vision for this?
Honestly, helping myself, because as an individual, you go through things mentally and emotionally. And one of the main things to ways to help yourself is by talking. And another thing is allowing the people that you talk with know that you can relate, because people will be surprised, what you can relate with. Maybe like somebody's surprised that they can relate with you with what you've been through and stuff like that. I'm a talker. I could talk 24/7, 365 days a year. I have ADHD, everything else. My high energy. I love talking. So I said, well, why not put that to use? I started it probably a few years ago, and it's gotten to where it is now. I also want to give a platform to people to speak kind of in a way where they may or may not normally be able to.
I love that. And it's you have curiosity. I can tell that just from, a few minutes of talking, Corey. And I think it's one of the superpowers in life. When you're curious, you usually are approaching conversations with a little bit more humility because you understand I can learn so much from Corey. I can learn so much from this person. I love that, man. And you're doing it. So kudos to you, hats off to you, because I think platforms like this are amazing. And like you said, it's not just helping you. Selfishly, that's great. And that should be a side benefit, but you're helping a lot of other people. So thank you for what you're doing.
No, definitely. And I talk sometimes about a lot of the personal stuff that I've been through too, if stuff gets brought up, because I like to talk about it all the time, but I don't ever, because I don't ever want the guests to feel like that, hey, this is about me, when in reality, it's about the person I brought on. If that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yep. No, I get that.
All right. Final question. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be, if anything?
Hmm. My first inclination to answer, I'd say nothing, because I think, once again, from a Christian mentality, God formed us how we are. And do we all have quirks? And I'm by no means perfect. I have my issues. There's a lot of things that I would change, but I think I'm trying to change the things that I can with positive action. So I'm going through that process. So if I didn't have those things to change, I don't know what I would be doing, Corey, because I think I'm on this journey just like everyone else is. We're trying to become better versions of ourselves, right? So at the end of the
Hmm.
day, I want my kids to grow up knowing that you can have a positive impact on others and yourself just by creating better daily habits, better daily actions. It's all about our decisions and our effort and our attitude and how we approach life. So for me, I'm going to continue to strive, and that's going to happen until the day I die because I want to be a better person today than I was yesterday. And I'm going to continue on that path. So it would be hard for me to say I want to change this, this, and this when that's that negative self-talk. Once again, oh man, you can't do this. You're not going to be able to do this. Get that out of your head and understand you can have actionable change in your life. All you have to do is make the decision, and it's 100% your choice.
Definitely. All right. Last thing. Go Cowboys. Now I'm just playing.